What do home inspectors look for? Whether you're buying or selling a home, inspections can be nerve-wracking, and they're a source of confusion for many. What's the difference between an inspection and an appraisal? Are there things that fail a home inspection? What fixes are mandatory after a home inspection? Hi, I'm Lydia Rowe, a realtor here in Tipp City, Ohio, and on this channel, we talk about all things living in the Miami Valley of Ohio. Today, I'm digging into home inspections. There's nothing quite as exciting for someone selling or buying a home as when you sign that purchase contract. It's a huge step, always filled with high hopes for a smooth process to the closing table. However, signing that purchase contract is really just one of the first steps in a pretty in-depth process before you get to snap that sold sign pic and post on social media. If you want a step-by-step guide to the entire process, I'll post a link to some free guides in the description. But today, I want to talk about one of the most important steps, and that's the inspection. Why is it so important, you ask? Well, for a buyer, the inspection is where you get to look under the hood, so to speak, and really get a feel for what you're getting into with purchasing that particular home. For a seller, you have profit numbers swimming around in your head, and you're hoping nothing big comes up that could compromise the deal, and that the buyer won't be nitpicky, as all homes have at least some little things that you didn't know about that are revealed. Conflicts over inspections is the number one reason deals fall apart. It is so important that both sides are willing to negotiate and look for a win-win solution. So what do home inspectors look for? Here are 7 of the big ones. Number 1, structural integrity. Home inspectors meticulously examine the property's structural components, including the foundation, walls, roof, and attic. They assess for any signs of settlement, cracks, or water damage that might compromise the stability of the structure. Here's something you might not realize, and it's important to note. Most inspectors are not structural engineers. They're not electricians, plumbers, HVAC specialists, roofing specialists. So although they will write up areas of concern, most of the time their recommendations will be to get a particular specialist in those fields out to look and assess. This can be frustrating to a buyer, but that's why it's good to know up front. The inspector is really just pointing out things and bringing things to your attention that might need repaired or serviced. They're not experts in all things. My preference is actually to find an inspector who is certified in many of these areas so that you don't have to have additional experts out, and sometimes they can even give you some estimates on repair along with the inspection, usually for an extra fee. Number 2, the big thing that inspectors look for is electrical systems. Inspectors inspect electrical panels, outlets, and wiring to ensure they meet safety standards. They check for overloaded circuits, faulty connections, and potential fire hazards. If you ever see a Federal Pacific panel, know you're probably going to need to have that changed out if you're getting a loan. They're a known fire hazard. In an older home, they may note some knob and tube wiring, and they'll likely recommend replacing, although it's not always necessary. I've only been in one inspection so far that doesn't have some sort of electrical issue flagged. Most of the time, it's outlets that aren't grounded or don't have GFCI in bathrooms, kitchens, or laundry areas. Other issues you don't always think to look for is like the service cable on the outside of the house. Here in our area, it's usually the homeowner's responsibility to keep the service cable in repair from the weather head on the top of the house to the meter, and then also from the meter to the panel and the sub panels. I've seen a few deteriorated service cables that can be a little pricey to replace. Number 3, plumbing systems. The plumbing system is thoroughly assessed, looking for leaks, drainage issues, and water pressure problems. Home inspectors will also check the condition of the pipes and fixtures. Galvanized and cast iron pipes are notorious for corrosion and backups and will usually be noted. Some insurance companies don't like those either. Ideally, you want to have copper or PVC. Unfortunately, for septic and well, you often need a separate inspection specializing in those things, but you can ask when you're interviewing inspectors to see if those things are covered. Number 4 big thing that they look for is the HVAC systems. Heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems are evaluated for functionality and efficiency. Inspectors may recommend maintenance if necessary or suggest upgrades for better energy performance. Every system is different. I just found out that boiler systems can last 50 years. If you aren't familiar with the system in the home you're purchasing, make sure to ask your inspector questions. If the system is functional but near the end of its life, this can be a point of negotiation between the seller and buyer for replacing, or one solution is negotiating a home warranty. Now, not all home warranties are alike, and many act more like discount programs with max limits per item. However, at least as of the date of this video, there's one company called 210 Home Warranties that does cover the cost of the entire HVAC system if it needs to be replaced, as long as it was checked out beforehand and functional. So if you have a 20 to 25-year-old system and it's fully functional at inspection, you can keep the house under warranty for between $650 and $850 a year, and then when it fails, they'll repair or replace it. And that covers a lot more than just the HVAC system too, but even if you're just doing it for HVAC coverage, the numbers make a lot of sense on an old unit. I don't make any money on 210 Home Warranties. I was just impressed at the coverage on the HVAC. And I have some other recommendations depending on what coverage you need. All right, moving on to number 5, roof and exterior. Inspectors carefully examine the roof for leaks, missing shingles, or signs of damage. They also assess the overall condition of the exterior, including siding, windows, doors, and the condition of the gutters and downspouts. They'll often recommend downspouts to be taken 4 feet away from the house, as that's kind of recommended right now. Any missing siding or holes should be filled. The big thing here is avoiding moisture and looking for entry points. Roofs can be extremely costly to replace, so this is another big one that can be cause for renegotiation unless the sellers disclose the roof's condition and the age of the roof up front in the disclosures. So here's another side note. With a few exceptions, sellers are required in Ohio to disclose known defects of their property. Anything that has had issues, whether it's been fixed and addressed or not in the last 5 years, some homeowners are hesitant to disclose all the problems, worrying that it's going to scare off buyers, but legally you're required to do so. And even more than that, it's actually in the seller's best interest as well. See, if you disclose things like the age of the roof or the HVAC system, for example, then the buyer shouldn't be asking you to fix those things after inspection. If there's an obvious defect a buyer can see or they know about before making an offer, then buyers make offers based on already knowing those conditions, and your price should reflect knowing that you might need to address those things. For instance, if the driveway is in disrepair, that can be pricey to fix. However, if it's something you can see easily and should reasonably account for in the original offer, rather than waiting for an inspector to tell you that the driveway is in disrepair and then asking the seller to repair. Does that make sense? Okay, one more note on exterior, and that is windows. Most inspectors will open and close windows and make sure they stay open or tilt if they're supposed to. I've seen many little issues like a broken stopper or a window that won't stay up or a window that won't open. You can expect some of this, and whether you negotiate for repair or replacement depends on what else you might be asking for, the cost, and many other factors. It's important to keep in mind that primarily an inspection is to find the major defects. Yes, you're going to make notes of all the little things, but little things, even if there's a lot of them, would be a silly reason for a deal to fall through. Most of the time, there's a middle ground to be found. Next up, insulation and ventilation. Adequate insulation and ventilation are essential for energy efficiency and preventing issues like mold and moisture buildup. Inspectors evaluate insulation levels and ensure proper ventilation in attics and crawl spaces. I've seen a lot of bathroom or kitchen vents venting right into the attic instead of outside. Dryer vents not properly ventilated can be a fire hazard as well. And last, number 7, appliances and fixtures. While not all home inspectors include checking appliances and fixtures, some inspectors may offer this service as an add-on or as part of the regular inspection. They examine the condition and functionality of items such as stoves, ovens, dishwashers, and plumbing fixtures. Common issues are loose or leaky fixtures or a dishwasher not properly installed. If you're getting a home warranty, having an inspector certify functionality before the sale is nice to help you avoid the warranty company claiming that the failure is a pre-existing condition. Now, before we wrap up here, I do want to talk briefly about what home inspections don't cover, because there are some issues that could come up after you purchase a home that you believe should have been found. So it's good to level expectations and know realistically that inspectors aren't going to inspect or find everything, and here's a few of them. Number 1, concealed areas. Home inspectors can't access concealed areas such as inside walls or beneath floors. Therefore, they're not going to be able to identify issues that aren't readily visible. Number 2, pest inspections. Home inspectors focus on structural and mechanical aspects and do not conduct pest inspections. Buyers should consider hiring a pest control specialist separately if needed. Some home inspection services do offer termite and other pest inspections for an additional charge, so you can ask about that. Number 3, environmental hazards. While some home inspectors might look for signs of mold and asbestos and lead-based paint, they're not experts in environmental testing. Specialized inspections are necessary to identify these hazards accurately, and it's up to the home buyer to hire the appropriate testing services if there's a concern there. One of the big ones that I recommend here in the Miami Valley of Ohio is radon. Most inspectors around here will add radon testing to their service for an additional cost. If radon levels are high, radon mitigation can be a bit pricey and is a cost that could be negotiated with the seller to cover or share. Sometimes radon can scare a buyer, but as long as it's properly mitigated, it's really not an issue. Number 4, code compliance. Home inspections do not guarantee that a property meets current building codes. Inspectors provide information about the condition of the home, but they don't conduct code compliance assessments. If you notice a home addition, a porch, a garage, you can check the county website to see if correct permits were pulled, but this is really up to you to do, not the inspector. Hopefully this gave you some understanding and insights as to what inspectors look for. In an existing home inspection, there's no such thing as failing. You don't fail an inspection. Obviously, new build inspections are different and you can fail those, but that's not what we're talking about here. When an inspector notes defects, big or small, it's up to the buyer to decide what they can live with and what they can't. Now, if you're getting a loan to purchase the home, your lender might have some ideas what needs to be repaired as well. However, that is not addressed through the inspection. Lenders send out third-party appraisers to put value on the property and assure the lender that the property value meets or exceeds the selling price. If there are major safety defects, the appraiser is going to note those, and until repaired, you might not be able to get financing. This is another big reason that some deals fall apart, and it's when financing falls through. Different loans are more strict than others in regards to the property's condition. So if you're going FHA or USDA or VA, more repairs might be necessary than if you're conventional. But even a conventional loan will have certain items they may flag and require to be repaired. I had to lay carpet down in one of my listings because the loan required the floors to be covered, even though the buyers were planning to put new carpet in. So the inspection is for the buyer and is super thorough and more about the condition of the home. And the appraisal is for the lender and is more about value of the home. Whew, okay. I think I covered most of the basics anyway. If you want to know more about buying or selling here in the Miami Valley, watch these videos next. Like, subscribe, comment, and don't forget to grab your free buying and selling guides at www.listwithlydia.com. I'll put a link in the description. See you next time.